Her name is Nina Ligon, a collegiate grad and Stanford-bound eventer.
This is the biggest competition I've ever been to, and trying to take it all in while also staying focused. Young female athletes are under so much scrutiny in a way that they've never been before.
Nina Ligon remembers getting on a horse for the first time as a 3-year-old in Thailand. 17 years later, and Nina will represent the country she was born in the London Olympics.
I think I wanted to give myself the chance to discover what I might be outside of that, because I really hadn't explored any other interests.
Nina will be one of 75 athletes riding in the equestrian competition known as eventing.
I didn't feel represented in sport for my body type, or that clothes didn't quite fit me right.
Yes. We are here and so excited to support Generation Sport however we can. Hey everyone, Jamie here. Welcome to Flame Bearers Unedited, a brand new series bringing to you largely unedited conversations. We heard you loud and clear. You want to hear more stories of more elite women athletes from around the world. So let's jump in.
I'm Nina Ligon. I am a former competitive equestrian in this equestrian sport called 3-day eventing. It's the triathlon of the equestrian world, and that was about over a decade ago. I competed for Thailand in the London 2012 Olympics, and since then have had a career as a designer at multiple tech firms, and most recently have launched a sportswear company called Generation Sport, where we build sportswear for the next generation of female athletes. I am based in sunny Oakland, California, and just very excited to be here today.
Thank you. So many different parts of that I want to dive into. Let's start with Nina, the professional athlete. What was it like for you to be Thailand's first Olympic equestrian? And take us back to that moment, actually. Take us back to your Olympic experience.
It was the culmination of a lifelong kind of dream. Ever since I was a little kid watching old videos of the Olympics, it was kind of something I was like, oh, that's what I'm going to do when I grow up. And I think my parents were really helpful in nurturing that dream in a way that was like, you do realize this is a lot of work. Like, it's going to be a big commitment if you really want to do this kind of along the way. And especially being able to do it for Thailand was incredibly special because I was born in Thailand. My mother's Thai. I have a really deep connection to my family there, but I grew up in the US. So competing for Thailand and choosing to do that when I turned eligible age felt like a way for me to reconnect to that culture and be really deeply ingrained in my Thai upbringing, and also to help promote the sport in a place where there wasn't a rich tradition the way that the UK has or the US has of this sport, and just really kind of help to grow the sport there. I was the first female equestrian from Thailand to compete in the Olympics. We did have one of the male competitors in, I want to say it was Beijing, which was great because he kind of paved the way for me. He was a big supporter in my journey and kind of helping me see like, oh, this is possible. And it was really cool to be able to build on that momentum. And then a couple years later to see that Thailand qualified and sent a team to Tokyo was just the most incredible experience. And that there was another young woman who had been kind of up and coming when I was training for Thailand, who got to go on that team. I think it really shows the impact of being able, to, if you can see it, you can be it. And I think that was big for me, and that was big for the next generation as well. And then you said, kind of taking us back to the Olympic experience, it was one of the most stressful and fun times at the same time. You go there and you're like, this is the dream I've always wanted. You're trying to enjoy it. And at the same time, it's like, this is the biggest competition I've ever been to. And trying to take it all in while also staying focused was tough. You want to enjoy every bit. You want to go to the opening ceremony. You want to enjoy the village. But then at the same time, I need to be locked in and focused on competition and not let the fact that this is such a big event with so many cool things to experience also distract me from the way I always prepare and treat it like any other competition that you do and don't freak out too much. So it was a weird balance of both trying to enjoy it, but also being I need to stay focused.
How do you do that? So do you have techniques that you employed in that 2-week period where you're like, I'm going to go out and enjoy this, but I also need to stay grounded so I could show up as my best self?
I learned meditation at a pretty young age. My grandmother used to have us meditate when we were like quite young. And I can't say I'm like super skilled at it. I think I mostly would take naps when she would make us meditate. But learning kind of those breathing exercises and just a way to kind of sit and be with your own mind were a big part for me. I'd have to say, I think the conversation around mental health, visualization, and kind of training the mental game wasn't as big when I was training. And so I don't think I really invested and took advantage of that side. You know, I'd had a little bit of training in terms of, okay, visualize what it takes to be successful, but I hadn't really had any formal training around it. And so that's kind of looking back on it, something that I wish I kind of invested more time in, and something that my parents were like, maybe you should do this. And I was like, I don't need this. I can control my own mind, and kind of really learning to be more open about it now. But at the time, it was really like doing more breathing exercises, taking deep breaths, trying to control my heart rate when it was getting out of hand a little bit. And I think I'm a real introvert, so it was a lot about going inside myself. And then I think the other piece that is unique to our sport is the horses were a big part of that. Just being in the barn before competition, being around them, they pick up on emotion really strongly. So they, in some ways, are a very soothing presence, but also when you are getting wound up or you're nervous, you can see their reaction and they start to feel it as well. And so being able to have them as a reflection of my own mental state was really cool, and something that I think helped to bring me back to more of a center of, wow, like my energy is really impacting them right now. I need to kind of calm myself down. I don't know. If you've ever been around horses, I found them incredibly soothing, and very therapeutic. So I think it was mutual that they were helping me as much as I was trying to kind of help them.
Absolutely. Nina, I know you mentioned previous to this recording that you considered yourself a horse girl. So talk to us about the various different identities that you held and any challenges that you faced throughout your athletic journey.
Yeah, for sure. I think if you ever know horse people, I think we become very obsessive about horses. Definitely growing up, horses were everything. I grew up on a farm in Virginia, and my room was like decorated with ribbons, and I had like horse stuffed animals and horse everything. There were like pictures of horses all over my walls. So I was like that very stereotypical obsessive horse girl. I did pony club as a young girl. I think I was known at my school as the horse girl. And I think it's a little bit par for the course in the sport. You spend so much time with these animals, you do become pretty obsessive with them. But when I left sport, the Olympics was my very last competition, and to kind of leave it cold turkey was a real shock to the system. I went from having every day spent most of the day in the barn around the horses, thinking about them, thinking about their training programs, thinking about the relationship we were building. And I had taken 2 years off of college to just focus on that exclusively. So in the 2 years where all of my friends were going off to college and making new friends and joining like fraternities, sororities, and then having the college experience, I was on a farm like alone with my family and horses, and just like going really deep into that world. And so then, it was like a month and a half after the Olympics, I went straight to college and went through new student orientation, and having to adjust to kind of being around people again was really interesting. Obviously I was around people at competitions and I was visiting friends when I was still training, but I was surrounded by other people who were true horse people. And going into college, it was really interesting to adjust and feel like, well, I was coming in 2 years older and with a lot of life experience than anyone. But at the same time, I felt like there was a level of maturity that I hadn't hit in terms of my social interactions. I would say the first few weeks, I was a little bit uptight. I was very much like, I'm older than everyone here. I'm about to turn 21 and I can, I'm like legally allowed to drink, and everyone else is like, still 18, 19, 20. But I think after the first week, just being like, age is a number, experience is different for everyone, and coming into college with an open mind and curiosity and being like, this is a new experience for all of us, and learning to not be so self-conscious and to kind of let go of that identity as a horse person. I wasn't going to the barn anymore every day. My identity wasn't tied up in this, and it was very unmooring for a little bit to be like, who am I now in college? I didn't want to define myself to everyone as the horse girl or even necessarily the athlete. I think I wanted to give myself the chance to discover what I might be outside of that, because I really hadn't explored any other interests. Going into college, I was like, I don't know what I'm going to major in. I don't know what I want to do with my life or my career. And so I just kind of took that time and thankfully that structured environment to explore a lot of things. And I think my identity quickly shifted over to like, I'm the designer. I'm the person spending all of my time in the design lab at Stanford. I locked onto that pretty quickly because I think I was looking for something new to latch onto. So that was an interesting kind of, maybe I wouldn't have jumped onto something so quickly had I not felt this need to just find a new identity to attach myself to.
We have community members in 56 countries, many of whom are aspiring Olympians, Paralympians, retired Olympians, Paralympians. What advice would you give to people who are currently in that process in that phase of being unmoored, currently struggling to find or to think of themselves as, not so-and-so the athlete? What would you want to tell them?
I think approaching everything with kind of a beginner's mindset and curiosity, that was the hardest lesson for me to learn, because coming out of my professional athletic career, I felt like I have this expertise, this thing that I spent, my 10,000 plus hours on that I've learned so deeply. And kind of everyone has told me like, you're really good at this, like this is your thing. And that's kind of been drilled into your head and feeling almost like an expert. Obviously, I had a lot to learn still, but feeling like there was something that I was really good at and I could own as almost an expert, and then having to kind of leave that and go somewhere else. It was really hard not to feel like, oh, I should just be really good at everything else I do, which is absurd of a mindset. I don't think you would normally take that into any new thing that you're learning. So I think really approaching everything with, it's okay to be a beginner again. It's okay to start from scratch, and it's perfectly normal to not know what you're doing, and to kind of let some of that ego go was really hard for me, and something that I think took a while, but was really pivotal in helping me start to explore new identities. I think it's really hard to start something new if you're approaching it from the mindset of, I need to be good at this when you start it.
Sure.
If you approach it from the mindset of, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm going to be curious and learn and recognize that other people are going to be better at this thing than me, and that's totally okay. And I don't have to be competitive at it immediately. I think that opens up the world of possibilities to being open to trying things and maybe not being good at them and being okay with not being good at something.
Those such exceptional points. I absolutely love that you said that. You have since gone on to become an exceptional designer, even if you didn't start with that as your skill set. So for those who haven't been following your journey, Stanford, walk us through to where you are today, because it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I feel like I've made a lot of pivots, but at Stanford, I discovered the product design program and kind of a love of design there. The program it's a human-centered design methodology, so it's all about understanding people, understanding problems, and solving problems from the perspective of being curious and learning first, rather than thinking you have the solution. And it was a mechanical engineering degree, so we were spending a lot of time like creating physical products. And that's where I thought I was going to go. I was like, maybe I'm going to be like an industrial designer and join one of these big design firms like an IDEO or a Frog Design. And then I, late in my senior year, discovered digital products and was like, oh, this is really cool. Like you can be designing experiences that people have on their mobile devices. And a friend had mentioned Headspace to me and that they were hiring interns. And I was like, cool, that sounds amazing. Meditation, mindfulness, delivered in an app. It was kind of this coming together of an experience I'd had as a young child that felt like it needed a little demystification. It was still kind of unusual for people to meditate at the time. And then this company that was what I felt leading the way in design and making meditation feel not so serious and feel really approachable. And like it was a practice that isn't rooted necessarily in religion or spirituality. It can be used as a mental wellness practice. I moved to LA after college to take on this internship, hoping that it would convert to a full-time offer and just kind of praying that they were going to like me. And it turned out to be a great fit. And I spent the next couple of years there working in design, particularly for habit formation and habit change. So how do you start new habits? How do you build healthy habits? And then after that, spent a little time at Thrive Global, also thinking about how do you design products around habit change, primarily in the workplace. So how do we make sure people are taking time out of their day to actually eat lunch, to stop and kind of step away from the computer to have real in-person interactions with others. And that was kind of a short-term contract before I went to business school. I love my career as a designer, but I felt like there's a part of my brain that I want to stretch into being a more strategic thinker. And that felt like something that I wasn't really doing as a designer. I was really in the weeds, focusing on how do you create these visual experiences and these emotional experiences that resonate with people. I wanted to think more strategically about, okay, how do you zoom out and figure out how do you grow a really great product and bring it to a massive audience? And I felt like business school was going to help me with that and help me just kind of think differently from how I'd been trained so far. So went to the business program at Yale School of Management, and
Smart cookie.
Thank you. Yeah, that was a good time. And it was definitely a challenge. I know sometimes business school gets a rep as just like a party school. But for me, I was like, this is all new stuff to me. I like never taken an econ class before. I never taken really any stats classes. Management science was new to me. I'd typically been kind of an individual contributor. This was my first experience working with like super different personalities, a lot of really type A people. And I think I brought a lot of value as being someone from a very different background, and then I gained a ton of value from it. We were the COVID class, so we weren't the kind of go out travel party class. It was a very academic 2 years for me, but also gave me a great opportunity to experiment with working in venture capital for a little bit, working with a couple other students to help launch the Yale Impact Fund, which launched a couple of years after we left, and kind of helping to lay the groundwork for that. And then went off to work 2 years in management consulting. So kind of continuing to make lots of pivots, spending those years kind of reinforcing what I learned in business school and trying to understand how do you build strategic roadmaps for companies? How do you implement them? How do you bring teams together from different backgrounds to work towards a single goal? And while I was there, I actually consulted for one of the major uniform suppliers. And that experience was very enlightening to why my uniforms never fit. As a middle school, high school athlete, it's like why my gym uniforms were never right, why I felt like I would see girls playing volleyball in spandex that never fit right, that was always riding up and feeling really self-conscious. And it was because I saw that the purchasing decisions were often made by men in these situations, and they were often tied to what is the men's basketball team going to be wearing? Okay, like let's just, for cost savings, was totally understandable, let's just get unisex uniforms, and those never fit the women's teams right. So that was this very first seed of the idea of, wow, okay, there's still room for improvement in sportswear, especially for women, especially designing with girls and women in mind. And that got me thinking down the route of what eventually led to Generation Sport, which was kind of blending my own experience as a young athlete, as a gymnast, as an equestrian, playing tons and tons of different sports in middle school and high school, and then my passion for design. I'm not an apparel designer by any means, but I love to be in the weeds of development and production and supply chain. And this was like a really great way to bring those two experiences together, as the athlete and the designer all in one, and then the strategic business person who's trying to figure out, okay, where is that white space, and how do we bring to market that emotion that I felt as a young girl that I didn't feel represented in sport for my body type, or that clothes didn't quite fit me right? Is there an opportunity? And so I spent the past year just exploring that space and really hearing a lot of powerful stories of other women who were former athletes and women who are current athletes that still feel like they aren't totally represented in sport and don't see themselves in kind of the common apparel that we see out there.
You have taken your lived experience, turned it into a business model, Generation Sport, and making sure that young girls don't have the experience that so many of us had. What are your hopes for the company looking forward? And what is your hope for yourself as an entrepreneur, but also a business owner, a mom, a woman, et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah, I mean, hopes for Generation Sport are one, that we're just continuing to solve problems for women in sport. I think that's ultimately what we come down to. do. If we don't do that, then I don't think we're meeting our mission, which is to ultimately keep girls in sport. So what that looks like is building apparel that's always athlete first. We try and co-design everything that we do with a panel of athletes. And right now we've got a great first collection designed, and it's just about bringing that to a wider audience. It's about telling our story and where we come from and finding that audience that resonates. And if we can help one girl feel like, wow, that's a body type I haven't normally seen represented in the media, whether it's, a girl who's playing rugby or who's throwing discus or who's wrestling. I think these are sports that aren't always brought up to the forefront. And if we can just help a girl feel like it doesn't matter what my body looks like, it's about what it can do and what I can feel confident in doing. That's the feeling I wish I'd had as a young girl. If we can help any young women feel that and feel like they belong in sport, I think we've accomplished that mission. And then for me as an entrepreneur, it's all about the learning journey and trying as much as possible to maintain balance. As you mentioned, I am a new mom, and so a new mom to a business and a new mom to a baby, and trying to figure out what is the life that kind of can allow me to be in both spaces and to be at the same time when I'm in my business also a mom. So being an entrepreneur, it creates a lot of flexibility, but it also creates a lot of pressure. So I get to make my own schedule a lot of times. I get to spend a lot of time with my baby that I wouldn't maybe have had in a traditional 9-to-5 job, definitely that I wouldn't have had as a consultant. But at the same time, when you're starting a business, the buck stops at you and the responsibility is on you to make it successful. And if you're employing a team, you're responsible for their jobs, their livelihood, and making sure that the lights stay on for them. So I think it's a unique balance of flexibility and more responsibility that I've ever taken on. But I think it's an incredible challenge. And for me, it's about building a company where people feel like they can bring their whole selves to work, whether that's as an athlete, as a business person, as a parent. We want to create a space that's welcoming for athletes and people of all types, and to feel like they can be their true selves at work, because that's something that I always haven't felt comfortable and found a way to do. I think, especially working in the corporate world, sometimes feeling like I had to turn some of my design and creative side off, or couldn't necessarily ask for the time to be the athlete that I wanted to be, and that sometimes my goals weren't always supported. And I think if you're going to be building a company that is focused on supporting people in sport, then you have to do that for your employees as well. So that's the kind of environment that I want to create.
Yes. We are here and so excited to support Generation Sport however we can.
You.
2 final questions. If younger Nina was listening in and you could tell her something, what would you want to say?
I think I would tell her that it's okay to ask for help. I think that was something that I was nervous to do, to admit that I didn't know something or that I needed help doing something. I felt like ultimately, as the athlete, I was like, it's my responsibility to be successful and to do well. Like, all these people are helping me trying to achieve this goal. Everything is on me in the end to succeed. And I think that's something I've heard echoed with a lot of athletes, is we don't want to burden other people with our problems or our fears or our concerns. And I'm hoping that is changing a lot. And it was something that I wish I had asked for help more as a young athlete and been more honest about times. And I was like, I'm not feeling mentally 100%. I'm not feeling totally there. I felt like I used to have to push that down a lot and hide that and just be like, put on a brave face. Everything's great. I'm here to perform. I kind of switch off that emotional side of my brain and I'm just in performance mode. And I think also, like, in the workplace, in school, building a business, it's really easy to fall into that trap again of being like, oh, everything's on me. I have to do it all myself and I can't let people in and see that I might be struggling sometimes. And I have slowly learned a lot more to ask for help. And that I think what a great teammate does, what a great entrepreneur does, is know when you don't know something and be okay to ask and realize that other people are better at certain things than you are. And it's about bringing the right people together to help you all get to where you want to go together. And, maybe if I'd played more team sports as a youth, that might have been more of the mindset that I would have come out with. But I think that's what I would tell my younger self, is just don't be afraid to ask for help. It's okay okay to admit you don't know something. And people actually really love to help you out and love to be on the journey with you. And so don't assume that you have to know everything.
Excellent advice. I need to hear that too. So thank you for the reminder. Last question is, what one action do you want people to take after hearing your story? And it can be anything.
Gosh, I think it's just remembering to, when you're supporting athletes, when you're online, when you're seeing people put themselves out there, just asking to be, supportive, constructive. I think part of what I've learned in building Generation Sport is that young female athletes are under so much scrutiny in a way that they've never been before. They're learning, they're figuring things out. And I think online can be a really tough place to put yourself out there, to show your training program, to kind of put your body on display, to put your emotions on display. I think a lot of people are out there doing their best. Sometimes they make mistakes. And I think just reminding ourselves that it's not easy to be a public figure as an athlete nowadays. And basically every athlete is. And to just, give people the benefit of the doubt, go into conversations with grace and understand, every moment can be a coaching moment. Maybe, people still make mistakes, but I think just being, kind and recognizing that we're all humans and we're all figuring things out. That has been the biggest learning I've seen while building Generation Sport, seeing all these young women out there trying to make a living in the sports world. And so just to kind of be a champion for women's sport, help us figure out where we can succeed together and help lift each other up. And, if you have time, check out Generation Sport. We're at generationsport.co, or our Instagram is at generation.sportco, and help us build better sportswear. We're always looking for community feedback in everything that we design. So always looking to hear opinions on what you like, what you don't like. The best way to build for women athletes is to team up and do it together. So if you have time, check us out. Give us your feedback. We'd love to hear what you think.
Awesome. Nina, anything we didn't get to that you want to discuss?
Maybe the only thing is having a platform like this and hearing other athletes share their stories is something that I certainly did not have access to when I was playing sport, or at least I didn't know about it. So the more we can spread the word, the more that we can share stories like the one that Flame Bearers is putting out there, I think that helps young women feel less alone and feel like, there are other people going through this. There are other people experiencing things that I'm experiencing and that I'm not alone in this journey. I think that is the most important thing that we can do, is continue to share stories of women athletes being vulnerable. And the more that we can spread the word about that, the more likely I think we are to keep other young women in sport and help them feel like there is a pathway for them that maybe didn't exist before, they wouldn't have seen had they not seen someone else blazing a trail. So really celebrate those trailblazers, help to spread the word, and thank you for what you're doing.
Well, thank you. Thanks for tuning in to Flame Bearers Unedited. 2 items. Number 1, if you like what you're hearing and want to be a part of this community, reach out to us at flamebearers.com. We have a contact form. We're actively looking for sponsors and partners to help us increase the reach and the incredible work that we're doing. Number 2, we want to hear from you. What's working? What's not working? Where can we do better? We've launched a Flame Bearers listening survey. It's in the show notes, and we want to hear from you for a chance to win behind the scenes access, as well as some really cool Flame Bearer swag. Thanks, and we'll catch you on our next episode.